Okay, the question was, in previous attempts at building Orthodox unity, the biggest problem was that the patriarchs were not ready. Is there any sign that this has changed? And I would say this has been the major sea change. That meeting in 2008, hosted by the Ecumenical Patriarch in Constantinople, the synaxes of all the patriarchs, they authorized this. Now, whether they're, I have to say I'm not quite sure whether the patriarchs themselves are ready to cut the apron strings or whether the daughter churches are ready to have their apron strings to mom cut. Because there are both issues. Some of the churches are very much tied to the mother churches, and others, such as us, we're free to make our own decision. And that's one of the greatest gifts that we have. It really struck me as we were sitting in the assembly that our synod was the only one that was able to freely decide its own fate. The question is, it seems like there are only two jurisdictions in North America that really want unity. One is the OCA with its model, and the other is the Ecumenical Patriarchate with its model. And they are certainly two very distinct models. And I believe one of the reasons that it is so important for us to have a full voice in this whole process is so that our vision, that really is our inheritance, going back all the way to St. Innocent and before, that we have a single united church in this country that has a single synod of bishops. That's very important. We can have a single united church in this country under the Ecumenical Patriarchate, but if it's like the current organization with the Ukrainians and the Carpatho-Russians and such, there's no synod, no united synod. What we need is a single synod of bishops that elects its own primate. And that's, I believe, the message that we wish that we need to convey to the rest of the church in this country. It's also a message that I believe resonates not only in the OCA, but with the Antiochians and with the Serbs and with the Romanians and the Bulgarians, and with the great bulk of faithful in the Greek Orthodox Church. The question is that given the interpretation of Canon 28 by the Ecumenical Patriarchate, and specifically by the Secretary, Archimandrite Elpidophoros, is it really going to be possible for us to pursue an authentically autocephalous church in this country? I think this is why it is not simply a decision of the Patriarchate of Constantinople as to how the churches are to be structured. In fact, after a long discussion personally with Archimandrite Elpidophoros, they are anxious to have us at the table, and they understand our position, and they want they value the contribution the OCA has made to world orthodoxy. This was a wonderful thing to hear from them. The reality, I think, is that their interpretation of Canon 28, which gives them, a certain, I won't say it's the Ecumenical Patriarchates. I'll say it is a position that Canon 28 gives the Ecumenical Patriarchate complete authority over the non-traditionally Orthodox areas, the so-called diaspora.
What does Canon 28 say?
Canon 28 says that the Ecumenical Patriarch, or the Patriarch of Constantinople, has jurisdiction over all the barbarian lands.
Oh.
been interpreted by various interpreters to mean is that it has a virtually universal jurisdiction. It also, and some of those interpreters would take it so far to say that the Russian mission in 1794 and the establishment of a diocese in 1842 and the establishment in Sitka and the diocese in San Francisco in 1870 and the diocese in New York in 1907 were all illegitimate and uncanonical because they were not authorized by the ecumenical patriarch. I think we disagree with that. And I think there's a lot of Orthodox who would disagree with that. And that's why ultimately our hope rests with a conciliar decision on the future of Orthodoxy in America. Because that is the normal structure. The normal structure is an autocephalous church where we control our own destiny. And it's not controlled by a foreign synod 10,000 miles away. The question is, how does the Moscow Patriarchate and its representation in the Episcopal Assembly interact in relation to our autocephaly and to the other churches? That's a really important, fascinating question. And I wish I really knew the answer. On one hand, the Patriarchate of Moscow gave us autocephaly, which means independence, administrative independence. It's like kicking a kid out of the house when it comes down to it. The kid doesn't necessarily he really says he wants to be out of the house, he wants to be gone, he wants to be doing his own thing, but he's going to do his laundry, he's going to get his mom's laundry, home for meals, ready in the refrigerator, etc., etc., etc. There is, I think, a great extent to which we have not actualized our autocephaly, which means to stand on our own 2 feet. Moscow is urging us to stand on our own 2 feet, which means don't run home, and expect them to stand up for us at every challenge. I think we need to gauge, what this is. Now, there's another reality too, is that there's been a massive immigration of Russians. In New York alone, there are 600,000 Russians, new Russian immigrants. 400,000 of them are Jewish, and 400,000 of those 600 are probably baptized Orthodox Christians. That means, of course, a lot of Russian Jews are also Orthodox Christians, at least baptized. There's probably, other cities have also huge populations. We are not able to serve them. They come to our parishes. They run into a convert priest who knows 2 words of Russian. And that doesn't do very much. They come to our churches and we're on the new calendar, and they don't like that. They come to our churches and they don't necessarily blend in. They go to Rokor churches and they don't blend in because it's a different culture that Rokor brought over, not post-Soviet culture. So the Russians, they're kind of chomping at the bit at wanting to make sure that their people are served by us, or are served in this country. And I think they recognize that we have not taken up we have failed, actually, in reaching out to them in any substantial way. In reality, we've failed. What are they going to do? because these people go back and forth. They're not like the old immigrants, you know. They're not indentured servants. These are wealthy people, very often who live on the international life, you know, back in two countries. It's a difficult thing. We've had a difficulty in importing clergy from Russia. Some are very good and it works out well. Some do not make the cultural transition, and it's because it's very hard. Others came over for their own reasons, and that makes things difficult. And we don't know how to manage them. So, because of the cultural divide. So, Russia has the Russians have a kind of a stake here that they're trying, that they want to see served. They want to see, and so how best to do that? Now, what I would suggest and have suggested to the patriarch is that they would put their bishop on our synod. And so that way they could, we could have somebody who could oversee these people and oversee a mission to the new Russian immigrants, who could communicate with them, who speaks their language. And I'm not just talking about the language; I'm talking about cultural resonance. It's also complicated with Rokor, because the more Rokor having, thank God, reconciled with the Russian Orthodox Church, the closer they've drawn to the Russian Church, the more they realize that they're Americans and Canadians, and they're not Russians. And so it's fascinating now that Rokor is part of the Moscow Patriarchate. They're using more and more English in their services. And they're drawing closer to us. Thank God. Thank God. There's been an alienation there which didn't need to be. But my hope is that in all of this, what we will be able to do is pull together a kind of a pro-synod of all of those churches, especially with the Antiochians and Serbs, where we can really start functioning together as a single synod. Even if they need to keep their relationship with their mother churches, because I don't think either of those churches are either ready to cut the apron strings or have them cut in reality. So what it all boils down to is we have a whole lot of work to do. But what we need to do is we need to come to a unity of mind within the Orthodox Church in America, dedicated to a common vision. And I think the core of that common vision is to work towards the unity of Orthodoxy in North America. Will it cost us? Yes. But is it worth it? Absolutely. So, God bless you, and I'm tremendously grateful and honored to be here at your assembly. It's a great joy to be here in Victoria, such an incredibly beautiful place, and with such overwhelming hospitality. Thank you very much, and look forward to being with you for the next couple of days.